Friends and viewers, good day. After discussing Brothers Karamazov, another novel I have in my hand of Fyodor Dostoyevsky, the name of which is Crime and Punishment. So this is a novel, one of the best novels of Fyodor Dostoyevsky, The Crime and Punishment. And this is written by Dostoevsky and one of the best novel ever written, Crime and Punishment. In 1864, it is written, Crime and Punishment. So before going to the character and theme of this novel, let's discuss what is there in this novel inside lying. So the story begins with Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov, a former student, a hero, a protagonist of this novel, lives in a tiny garret on the top floor of rundown apartment building in St. Petersburg. He is a sickly man, dressed in rags, short on money, and talks to himself all. But he is also handsome, proud, and intelligent. He is contemplating committing an awful crime. He is trying to commit a crime, but the nature of the crime is not yet clear. He goes to the apartment of old pawnbroker, Elena Ivanova, to get money for a watch and to plan the crime. Afterward, he stops for a drink at a tavern where he meets a man named Marmeladov, who in a fit of drunkenness has abandoned his job and proceeded on a 5-day drinking brink. Afraid to return home to his family, Marmeladov tells Raskolnikov about his sickly wife, Katerina Ivanova, and his daughter Sonia, who has been forced into prostitution to support the family. Raskolnikov walks with Marmeladov to Marmeladov's apartment where he meets Katerina and sees firsthand the squalid condition in which they live. They were living in a very poor condition, the family of Marmeladov. The next day, Raskolnikov receives a letter from his mother, Pulcharia Alexandrovna, informing him that his sister Donia is engaged to be married to a government official named Luzin, and that they are all moving to St. Petersburg. He goes to another tavern where he overhears a student talking about how society would be better off if the old pawnbroker, Elena Ivanova, were dead. Later in the street, Raskolnikov hears that the pawnbroker will be alone in her apartment. The next evening, he sleeps fitfully and wakes up the next day, finds an axe, and fashions a fake item to pawn to distract the pawnbroker. That night he goes to her apartment and kills her. While he is rummaging through her bedroom, looking for money, her sister Lizaveta walks in and Raskolnikov kills her as well. He barely escaped from the apartment without being seen, then returned to his apartment and collapsed on the sofa. Waking up next day, Raskolnikov frantically searches his clothes for traces of blood. He receives a summons from the police, but it seems to be unrelated to the murders. At the police station, he learns that his landlady is trying to collect money that he owes her. During a conversation about the murder, Raskolnikov faints and the police begin to suspect him. Raskolnikov returns to his room, collects the goods that he stole from the pawnbrokers, and buries them under rock in out-of-the-way courtyard. He visits his friend Razumokhin and refuses his offer of work. Returning to his apartment, Raskolnikov falls into a fitful, nightmare-ridden sleep. After 4 days of fever and delirium, he wakes up to find out that his housekeeper, Natasha, and Razumokhin had been taking care of it. He learns that Sazimov, a doctor, and Simayatov, a young police detective, also been visiting him. They all notice that Raskolnikov becomes extremely uncomfortable whenever the murders of the pawnbroker and her sister are mentioned. Luzin, Dunya's fiancé, also makes a visit. After a confrontation with Luzin, Raskolnikov goes to a cafe where he almost confessed to Sozimoyotov that he is murderer. Afterward, he impulsively goes to the apartment of the pawnbroker. On his way back home, he discovered that Marmeladov has been run over by a carriage. Raskolnikov helps to carry him back to his apartment, where Marmeladov dies. At the apartment, he meets Sonia and gives the family 20 rubles that he received from his mother. Returning with Razumokhin to his own apartment, Raskolnikov faints when he discovers that his sister and her mother are there waiting for them. Raskolnikov became annoyed with Pulcharia Alexandrovna and Donya, his sister, and orders them out of the room. He also commands Donya to break her engagement with Luzin. Razumokhin, meanwhile, falls in love with Donya. The next morning, Razumokhin tries to explain Raskolnikov's character to Donya, Pulcharia Alexandrovna, and then the three return to Raskolnikov's apartment. There, Sozimov greets them and tells them that Raskolnikov's condition is much improved. Raskolnikov apologized for his behavior the night before and confessed to giving all his money to the Marmeladov. But he soon grows angry and irritable again and demands that Donya and not marry Luzin. Donya tells him that she is meeting with Luzin that evening, and that although Luzin has requested specifically that Raskolnikov not to be there, she would like him to come nevertheless. Raskolnikov agrees. At that moment, Sonia enters room, greatly embarrassed to be in the presence of Raskolnikov's family. Sorry. Sonia, she invites Raskolnikov to her father's funeral, and he accepts. On her way back to her apartment, Sonia is followed by a strange man who we later learn as Svidrigailov. Svidrigailov, Donya's lecherous former employer, who is obsessively attracted to her. Under the pretense of trying to recover a watch he pawned, Raskolnikov visits the magistrate in charge of the murder investigation. Porfiry Petrovich, a relative of Razumokhin, Semyatov, is at the detective's house when Raskolnikov arrives. Raskolnikov and Porfiry have a tense conversation and about the murder. Raskolnikov starts to believe that Porfiry suspects him and is trying to lead him into a trap. Afterward, Raskolnikov and Razumokhin discuss the conversation, trying to figure out if Porfiry suspects him. When Raskolnikov returns to his apartment, he learns that a man had come there looking for him. When he catches up the man in the street, the man calls him a murderer. That night, Raskolnikov dreams about the pawnbroker's murder. When he wakes up, there is a stranger in the room. The stranger is Svidrigailov. He explained that he would like Donia to break her engagement with Luzin, whom he esteems unworthy of her. He offers to give Donia the enormous sum of 10,000 rubles. He also tells Raskolnikov that his late wife, Marfa Petrovna, left Donia 3,000 rubles in her will. Raskolnikov rejects Svidrigailov offer of money, and after hearing him talk about seeing the ghost of Marfa, suspect that he is insane. After Svidrigailov leaves, Raskolnikov and Razumokhin walks to a restaurant to meet Donia. Pulcharia Alexandrovna and Luzin Razumokhin tells Raskolnikov that he is certain that police suspect Raskolnikov. Luzin is insulted to find that Raskolnikov, contrary to his wishes, is in the attendance at the meal. They discuss Svidrigailov arrival in the city and the money that has been offered to Donia. Luzin and Raskolnikov get into an argument, during the course of which Luzin offends everyone in the room, including his fiancée and prospective mother-in-law. Donia breaks the engagement and forces him to leave. Everyone is overjoyed at his departure. Razumokhin starts to talk about plans to go into the publishing business as a family, but Raskolnikov ruins the mood by telling them that he does not want to see them anymore. When Raskolnikov leaves the room, Razumokhin chases him down the stairs. They stop face to face, and Razumokhin realizes without a word being spoken that Raskolnikov is guilty of the murders. He rushes back to Donia and Pulcharia Alexandrovna to reassure them that he will help them through whatever difficulties they encounter. Raskolnikov goes to the apartment of Sonia Marmeladov. During their conversation, he learns that Sonia was a friend of one of his victims, Lizaveta. He forces Sonia to read to him the biblical story of Lazarus, who was resurrected by Jesus. Meanwhile, Svidrigailov drops from the apartment next door. The following morning, Raskolnikov visits Porfiry Petrovich at the police department, supposedly in order to turn in a formal request for his pawn watch. As they converse, Raskolnikov starts to feel again that Porfiry is trying to lead him into a trap. Eventually breaks under the pressure and accuses Porfiry of playing psychological games with him. At the height of tension between them, Nikolai Volkman, who is being held under the suspicion of murder, bursts into the room, confesses to the murder on the way to Katerina Ivanovna's memorial dinner for Marmeladov. Raskolnikov meets the mysterious man who called him a murderer and learns that the man actually knows very little about the case. The scene shifts to the apartment of Luzin and his roommate, Lebeziatnikov, where Luzin is nursing his hatred for Raskolnikov, whom he blames for the breaking of his engagement to Donia. Although Luzin has been invited to Marmeladov's memorial dinner, he refuses to go. He invites Sonia to his room and gives her a 10 ruble bill. Katerina memorial dinner goes poorly. The widow is extremely fusy and proud, but few guests have shown up, and except for Raskolnikov, those that are drunk and crude. Luzin then enters into the room and accuses Sonia of stealing 100 ruble bill. Sonia denies his claim, but the bill is discovered in one of her pockets. Just as everyone is about to label Sonia a thief, however, Lebeziatnikov enters and tells the room that he saw Luzin slip the bill into Sonia's pocket as she was leaving his room. Raskolnikov explained that Luzin is probably trying to embrace him by discrediting Sonia. Luzin leaves and fight breaks out between Katerina and her landlady. After the dinner, Raskolnikov goes to the Sonia's room and confesses the murder to her. They have a long conversation about his confused motive. Sonia tries to convince him to confess to the authorities. Lebzitnyakov then enters, informed that Katerina Ivanova to have gone mad. She is parading the children in the street, begging for money. Sonia rushes out to find them while Raskolnikov goes back to his room and talks to Donia. He soon returns to street and sees Katerina dancing and singing wildly. She collapses after a confrontation with a policeman and soon after being brought back to her room dies. Svitri Yalov appear and offer to pay for the funeral and the care of children. He reveals to Raskolnikov that he knows Raskolnikov is the murderer. Raskolnikov wanders around the haze after his confession to Sonia and the death of Katerina. Razumokhin confronts him in his room, asking him whether he has gone mad and telling him of pain that he has caused his mother and sister. After their conversation, Porfiry Petrovich appeared and apologized for his treatment of Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov in the police station, nonetheless, he does not believe Nikolai's confession. He accuses Raskolnikov of the murder but admits that he does not have enough evidence to arrest him. Finally, he urges him to confess, telling him that he will receive a lighter sentence if he does so. Raskolnikov goes looking for Svitryalov, eventually finding him in a cafe. Svitryalov tells him that though he is still attracted to Donia, he has gotten engaged to a 16-year-old girl. Svitryalov parts from Raskolnikov and manages to bring Donia to his room, where he threatens to rape her. After she refuses to marry him, she fires several shots at him with a revolver and misses. But when he sees how strongly dislike him, he allows her to leave. He takes her revolver and wanders aimlessly around St. Petersburg. She dislikes him. He allows her to leave. He takes her aimlessly St. Petersburg. He gives 3,000 rubles to Donia, 15,000 rubles to the family of his fiancée, and then books a room in the hotel. He sleeps fitfully and dreams of a flood and seductive 5-year-old girl. In the morning, he kills himself. Raskolnikov, who is visiting his mother, tells her that he will always love her and then returns to his room where he tells Donia that he is planning to confess his crime. After she leaves, he goes to visit Sonia, who gives him a cross to wear. On the way to the police station, he stops in the marketplace and kisses the ground. He almost pulls back from confessing when he reaches the police station and learns of Svitryallov's suicide. The sight of Sonia, however, convinces him to go through with it, and he confesses to one of the police official, Ilya Petrovich. A year and a half later, Raskolnikov is in prison in Siberia, where he has been for 9 months. Sonia has moved to the town outside the prison, and she visits Raskolnikov regularly and tries to ease his burden. Because of his confession, his mental confusion surrounding the murders and testimony about his past good deed, he has received, instead of death sentence, a reduced sentence of 8 years of hard labor in Siberia. After Raskolnikov's arrest, his mother became delirious and died. Razumokhin and Donia were married for a short while. Raskolnikov remains as proud and alienated from humanity as he was before his confession. But he eventually realizes that he truly loves Sonia and expresses remorse for his crime. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the story of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoyevsky, the story of Raskolnikov. And so the characters of this is Elena Ivanova, moneylender, whom Raskolnikov had killed; Elizabeth, servant and sister of moneylender; Pulcharia Alexandrovna, mother of Raskolnikov; Exodoya Romanov Donia, sister of murderer; Nastasia, the servant; Marfa Petrov, wife of Svidriy Yalov; Katerina Ivanova; Sofia Sonia Simonova, Madame Lipchivzil, Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov, the hero character; Dmitry Prokhorovich Rozomokhin, fellow student; Peter Petrovich Loshin, Arkit Ivanovich Svidriy Yalov; Marmeladov, the old drunken retired civil servant; Andrei Semenovich Levzinyakov; Sozimov, Nikolaya and Adria Petrovich. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the characters involved in this novel, Climate. I hope you will enjoy this novel. It is a very interesting novel. And this Raskolnikov, the motive of his murder is that he wants to go through the pain. He does not need the money of that pawnbroker woman, but instead he wants to go through the pain, through the suffering, through